Episode 16, Mystery Date. Today on...
Press B to cancel.
Are you talking... Is this a Tinder thing now? I didn't sign up for Tinder today.
Welcome to everybody's favorite game show. What the f***, Jake? This week's contestants come from across the globe. Please join me in welcoming the man with no face, but he's still damn pretty, Pulsh.
That's me.
And the master of Midwestern hip-hop, notable author, GP.
Yeah, hi, it's nice to be here. Looking forward to meeting whoever's behind the wall.
And pixel artiste and connoisseur of puns, Wolf.
Hi there.
All right, that went better than I thought it would. Welcome, everybody, to Press B to Cancel. Of course, I am also SicJake, or Jake. Today, we got a bit of a different episode. I try and change things up. Why? I don't know. Insert joke later. Anyway, so we're going to do a bit of a different thing here. We're going to do, basically, I have got a game I love, but I want the folks on the podcast to kind of try and guess what that game is, and then we'll talk about it. I'm pretty sure at least one or two of you have played
Not
it.
Donkey Kong Country.
100 points to Pulsh.
Sweet.
Definitely not that goddamn game. So I'll give a couple of clues. You guys will probably get it. You guys are masters of all things retro, right? At least more than me. So, but we'll go through the clues and then we'll talk about it. So I guess starting off, the first clue for this game, it's a port with a twist of a game originally released in 1981.
Bzz.
GP.
What is The Sixth Sense? Thank you.
That's a movie.
I heard twist.
Woody twist?
Oh my god. What a twist. Yeah. Thank you, Robot Chicken.
I'd love the Robot Chicken. Any other guesses for that one?
A port with a twist.
1981.
I want to say Pac-Man.
Is that your final answer?
That's the only thing I can think of around that age, so yes.
Not Pac-Man. Although I do love Pac-Man. I actually quite love Miss Pac-Man on the Atari.
I feel like Pac-Man came before that because I know there was the song Pac-Man Fever, which I'm also pretty sure came out no later than 1980.
I thought Pac-Man Fever was like mid-'80s.
Was it? I thought it was earlier than that.
I mean, the game is definitely... you're right, the game is older, but I thought the song was later in the 80s. But it's not Pac-Man. All right, next clue. Made in spinach and mustard, this hot dog game has great appeal.
Oh my god, it's Burger Time, isn't it? No, it's not
Good guess.
Burger Time.
Oh, fuck,
Hot dog
actually, that's
game.
a really
You
good
said
one.
appeal. Is there something to do with banana Popeye?
Is it
You just
Donkey
you just
Kong?
said Popeye.
Boom! Donkey Kong for the Game Boy. I figured Wolf would get it.
Game Boy was around in 1981?
So it's I can't talk. Port with a twist. So it came out originally in 1981, right? Donkey Kong for, well, I guess it was arcade, then Coleco Atari, if not wrong. But this game came out in 1994. It was a port of the original Donkey Kong, but then it kind of goes on from there. But just so people have the last clue, because I worked hard on this. That's the last clue. It's just the music from the game.
I
Donkey
would
Kong.
not have gotten that.
It's Donkey Kong.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, 1994. Who's actually played this game besides me?
Nope.
Really? I thought you played it.
The Donkey Kong I think of is on the bootleg 31 in 1 cart that I had as a kid that I thought was totally legit, by the way. And that's it. So I'm just I'm thinking of when he jumps over stuff and it's like diddle-dee-doo, diddle-dee-doo.
Yeah.
Is that
That's
the
what I
same
think
one?
of.
I'm about to disappoint and let you know that I've only played the NES game and the arcade version. That's it.
Really?
I've played Donkey Kong Country, which is fantastic.
You can't hear it or see this through the microphone, but I'm just giving you a really stare right now. Donkey Kong
I
Country.
hope you can see this as hard as I can. I know I got that wrong, but
The Moonanites?
All right,
Anyway,
so-
yeah, sorry.
So this game is based on Donkey Kong, the original game, and it actually starts off that way. It starts off with the original 4 levels from Donkey Kong. So, the jumping over barrels, grabbing the hammer, taking out the rivets on girders, dodging whatever those bouncing hourglass trampoline things are supposed to be. It's the first 4 levels are straight ports of the original Donkey Kong game. But when you beat those 4 levels, instead of just repeating in a loop like most of those old games did, you get a shortcut scene where Donkey Kong runs off with Pauline, and then it takes you to like a world map, and you get 97 more levels of game.
Whoa.
Like, I'm surprised you guys haven't played it. This is probably one of my favorite top 10 games of all time. Definitely one of the favorite on the Game Boy. I had played the hell out of the Game Boy. I think I mentioned before on the podcast in past episodes that I never really had a Super Nintendo till later in life. I had a Genesis, I had a Nintendo. But games are expensive. I mean, they're really expensive now, but even back then they were pricey. But the Game Boy titles were always cheaper. So most of the games I bought as a kid of my own money were for the Game Boy. That's the old spinach and yellow I was talking about.
Ah, yeah.
But 97 more levels, not just the classic Donkey Kong style, but it's actually more of a puzzle style game. So that's where it's a spin-off, which is quite interesting.
Well, I may have played it and just didn't know there were more levels after the OG4. Because I don't think I've ever made it that far.
Yeah, I definitely didn't get past the second level. I remember that because I got very angry at it. So I switched to Donkey Kong Jr.
So actually, Donkey Kong Jr. is got a cameo in this one. So I have a couple links to videos, especially because you guys have never played this one. So if you want to just pop open the video as we go, and I'll show you different links.
I was very late to the Game Boy party. I don't think I got one until middle of 97 with the Game Boy Pocket.
That's late. What color?
Black.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Correct answer.
First game I got for it was Final Fantasy Adventure.
That's a good game too, actually. That's another one of my favorites. Not quite Final Fantasy. They just changed the name for over here, but solid Game Boy game.
Okay, so Mario looks kind of like Wario in this game. And apparently he can size up and down in this version of Donkey Kong.
Yeah, so there's a lot of... The reason why I like this game is it came out in 94, but there's a lot of influences on later Mario titles, right? So yeah, the mushrooms in the game do shrink you down, which is very Mario-esque and something you see in later titles, right? But there's also things like you pick up keys. The whole goal with the puzzle levels is to grab the key and then get to the exit and escape. But you actually pick things up much like Mario Bros. 2 USA, which we talked about before. You can also pick up some enemies, much like Mario 2. But then you also look at the movements that Mario can do. You have a few different tricks. You can backflip, double jump. You can even do this handstand type move and bounce barrels off your legs and then do high jumps. So like all these new acrobatic moves to me feel very much like Super Mario 64, which, only except in 2D, right? So like I wonder how much do Nintendo development teams talk behind the scenes? Because Mario 64 came out in 96, only a couple of years after this one came out.
Ooh.
Do we know when, I'm just curious, do we know when Donkey Kong Country came out?
I want to say it was 96.
Was it really?
It could have been that late.
Was it that late?
Yeah, that may be a little bit too late. I don't know.
I want to say 93, actually. 92 or 93.
I'm trying to think of the opening
I'm wondering
screen,
if they did this because of the success of Donkey Kong Country.
Jake, what was the angriest year of your childhood?
Well, let me see. How old was I when I played Donkey Kong
Well, it
Country?
looks like, okay, so Donkey Kong Country came out in 94.
Oh, interesting. So same year as this. I think the developers are different, if I'm not wrong, though. Because like this game is radically different than Donkey Kong Country. Right?
Donkey Kong Country was like big secret project at Nintendo of America.
Didn't Rare make? Yeah, Rare did that as well. Yeah, okay. But yeah, so I mean, this is Donkey Kong Country. Like I said, everybody knows I don't like the game. To me, it's just a generic platformer. Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy, though, has those puzzle elements, which you don't quite see in too many Mario games, not to this degree. They add all kinds of new tricks to the game. Items that let you build bridges and ladders, hammers in the classic style to whack enemies. You can even hide in trash cans, like Solid Snake style in cardboard boxes, that kind of thing to sneak around levels a bit. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so this sort of led into the Mario versus Donkey Kong games.
Yeah, so there was no direct sequel to this, but yeah, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series is kind of the spiritual successor. I have not played those, and I don't know how well they are.
I haven't either. I remember commercials for them back in high school and stuff, but it looks like this one probably was this one was released to help push Super Game Boys.
Yes. And so who here actually owned a Super Game Boy?
Oh, me. I still have
Me
mine.
too.
So what games did you have for it?
I didn't have a single game that was meant for Super Game Boy. I just had the Super Game Boy.
Is that because you owned a Game Boy as well, though, didn't you?
I did, yeah. But Super Game Boy was, play Game Boy games through your Super Nintendo on a TV. So I was
Right.
like, once I got that, the Game Boy was retired.
Oh, interesting. See, for me, the portability was key. Like, I went through, to beat this game alone, I think I went through 3 sets of AA batteries. Like, I had the old gray one, the big brick,
Oh, yeah.
which took 4 AA's. It lasted like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I definitely ran through them several times.
I actually gave mine
Man, that's
to-
a bummer, seeing as the Pocket was like 2 AA's and lasted hours.
Yeah.
Was it?
I,
Wow.
I gave my original Big Bomb one to Werewolf, actually.
Yeah, I haven't fired it up yet to try and make it work, but I might get to that at some point in the future.
Wolf, did you use any games that were meant for the Super Game Boy?
Not meant for, but I want to say Pokemon made use of it.
Okay.
I think Pokemon had a few features that made use of it. Like Pokemon sprites were colored the color they should have been, things like that. But that's about it. For me, it was when I was home in my room, and this is a point when my brother and I were sharing a room 10 years apart. If he wasn't using the TV and I wanted to play Pokemon, I threw it in the Super Game Boy and played it there. Otherwise, if I wasn't in my room, it was the Game Boy Pocket just about anywhere.
Now, see, I didn't have the Super Nintendo late in life, so I mean, I knew how neat the device was, but I never really realized how much it changed in certain games. Like this game is definitely a hallmark for that, I think, in that it changes the palette quite a bit. Like Mario's slightly different colored, the title screen and the power-up screen and all that, or the bonus games, sorry, are all done really well with the different colors, multicolored palette, which is really nice. So they did a really good job with the support for it, and I thought it was a hallmark title for that. But I really never got a chance to play it like that until emulation when I was an adult.
So was this purely Game Boy with Super Game Boy special features, or was it a Game Boy Color game?
So this is just a Game Boy. Oh, actually, I wonder. Well, Game Boy Color came out. That was after Super Game Boy, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think it was.
Yeah, Game Boy Color was separate.
Right. So this is just a generic, but it was a Game Boy title originally with Super Game Boy features.
The Game Boy Color. Oh man, the Game Boy Color didn't come out till '98. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, because they did different color cartridges to kind of note the differences. Original Game Boy Color carts were gray. Game Boy Color, I think, was black, if I'm not wrong.
Game Boy Color had transparent cases.
Right, that's what it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they color coded their cartridges to let you know.
I remember playing Pokemon Blue in the Super Game Boy, and it has a pre-established blue theme. That's all I can remember about it.
Yeah, if you played a game that didn't have the special Super Game Boy support, you could still pick from I think 4 or 5 different palettes. And I mean, it's a nice change, right?
If it didn't have palettes built in, I think you still had access to something like either 32 or 64 palettes.
Yeah.
And then you could
Oh,
also
wow.
make your own palette.
See, I love it because, I mean, the original Game Boy, that yellow and spinach colored, I mean, that's nostalgia for me, but I mean, nobody plays on stream or online anymore with those colors. They always play black and white, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get the nostalgia for that just because I came to the Game Boy so late. I understand why people have it, but it doesn't hit me in the feels. That's what I want
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
GP, what about you? Did you own a Game Boy, didn't you, or no?
Very briefly, I think I owned one that was a secondhand, hand-me-down gift from a friend of mine. And then a few months after that, my dad and mom had noticed I was enjoying that, so they got me a Game Gear. And that was my entire experience with handhelds until the DS. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I was really out of the handhelds for a long time. And really my exposure to Game Boy was Tetris. I want to say one of the Mega Mans, but I don't really remember much of that. And then when Pokemon came out in the late 90s, I remember playing the yellow one with a friend of mine, but it was his. So it was very limited, but I wish I had more to say about the Game Boy. I enjoyed it. I just was never steeped in it, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, I totally get it. Like, it was a very specific, I don't know, generation thing. Like, there's a lot of kids I know growing up who didn't have one either. My wife actually had a Game Gear as well. She never touched a Game Boy. But just something about Nintendo taking their classic IPs and porting it to this handheld. And I mean, early on, especially, the graphics were quite limited. But when you look at something like Donkey Kong 94, they did an amazing job on the sprite work. If you look at the cutscene tutorial video I put in chat there for a sec, if you look at the graphics, for me, this game has amazing charm, right? Just the variety of music. There's different world themes from big city, desert to mountains, right? There's a number of different enemies from, piranha plants, and I can't recognize what half these enemies are. Bird things. I don't know what they are, but they look really well done. And even Mario itself looks quite detailed for a Game Boy game, right? Donkey Kong especially is nice and big and well animated. And just, it's great. There's a lot of charm in things like the sound effects. A lot of the sound effects call back to the original Donkey Kong, which is something I played as a kid. But there's a lot of the newer stuff too. Like, for example, if Mario jumps off a long ledge and he has a long fall, he face plants and his leg pops up in the air and just twitches. And the sound effect that makes every time always gets me laughing. I just love it.
This handstand walking he seems to do from time to time. It's interesting.
Right. So you can do like the double jump, and then you can do a double jump and into a handstand, right, as a combo, and then do a third higher jump. And that, to me, like I said before with the moves, is very much like Mario 64 in that you do the triple jump. And like, this is an early Nintendo game.
Yeah, I thought the same thing when I saw it. This is well before the 64 released.
And like, it really expands on how the Mario moves. There's another one too, like a backflip move, which is also in the Mario games. And like, going back to the beginning of the game, it starts off in the classic Donkey Kong level format, but you still have access to all the moves. You've not been told how to do them, but if you already know from previously playing, you can do the backflips and handstands all through the early levels and beat them amazingly quick, which I think is hilarious. It's really well done.
Yeah, this looks pretty cool. It definitely, what I get out of this is kind of like they're dipping their toe in the water for the various remakes they did for Game Boy Advance with the Mario franchise.
Oh, what did they do? They did New Super Mario Brothers. They remade,
yeah, no, not even New Super Mario Brothers, but yeah, also that was on the DS. But I'm talking about Super Mario Advance 2, which of course released the original Mario games all out of order.
Yes.
Mario Advance was like Mario USA or some nonsense, and then Mario Advance 2 was like Mario World. I don't know. It was they did a weird numbering thing with that, but it seems like the same kind of idea, because I'm pretty sure those also added quite a few features to the original games and updated the sprite work and stuff.
You had me at updated sprite work.
This is definitely not what I would expect from a Donkey Kong game, the kind of content I'm seeing in the game, though. It's very much more in line with a standard platformer, but with like Donkey Kong Jr. mechanics at play as well.
But so one of the things I like about it is if you look at the level example, I mean, you get the puzzle elements, but every fourth level you'd have a boss level, kind of. And half of them were kind of a throwback to the original Donkey Kong, where it's a single or double screen where you're trying to get to Pauline at the end of the stage and you're dodging obstacles. But then at the end of every world, you'd have an actual, honest goodness boss level where you have to pick up barrels and toss them at Donkey Kong. And they get harder as you go, and it's incredibly well done. The game is probably not, it's challenging, but because of, Nintendo's, I guess, style at the time was make things a little bit difficult, but very accessible still. You got levels, extra lives at the drop of a hat. Like, you could easily get 99 lives, but the levels themselves could be still really challenging. And toward the end, some of those boss fights got quite brutal. The classic Donkey Kong level is, you're jumping over the barrels, over those girders to the top. One of the last stages is that style, but the ground itself deteriorates as you walk on it. So as you're running from girder to girder, they fall apart beneath you, so you can't go back. And it's really an interesting twist on the game.
Yeah, I got to say, my big takeaway with this game is the idea, and this is just going from what you're showing me here, the idea of staying true to kind of the classic roots of it, but incorporating new... It's not like a genre switch, but almost imagine making a platformer something more than a platformer, but not like a dedicated genre change. It's interesting. It's interesting, and I feel bad that I don't know anything about it, actually.
Yeah, I'm in that same
And considering there's 100 levels, I'm like, how did I not know about this?
Yeah, for shame, all of you.
Yeah.
I've never played this before.
Well, I'm actually quite surprised. Like, well, the game is one of the best sellers on Nintendo Game Boy too. But like, to be fair, when I first bought it, I didn't realize quite the extent of the game that I was getting. I just really liked Donkey Kong, and the game was, I think it was on sale when I bought it. I definitely did not buy it when it first came out. And just the surprise when you beat that fourth classic stage and it takes you onto a world map, it lets you save, and all of a sudden you're just faced with picking up keys and stuff. It was really bizarre, but just the value. I mean, what would be normally, a 5, 15, 10-minute game you'd play for, your personal challenge on speed becomes this multi-hour venture. I think I spent a dozen hours trying to beat this game. And then once I did, I even went back because there's the 3 bonus items in each stage that you can try and get. And I went back and got every stage 100%ed by getting each of those 3 bonus items. So I put a lot of hours into this little Game Boy title. It was definitely value for the money.
It certainly looks it with what I'm seeing. I'm about to bring the quality of this particular podcast way down and say that Donkey Kong Sprite, man, his butt is really pronounced. Just and animated. Like he's twerking and all that stuff, and you can see it.
Dude, he lifts for sure.
Also, I think this is the first game in which you notice that he has a necktie with his monogram on there. He's got his initials on his necktie, so that's interesting.
Well, I mean, Nintendo had to do something about the flagrant nudity in their game.
Yeah.
So they gave him a tie.
Yeah. What is that giant thing flailing off of his body? Oh, that's a necktie.
That's how they snuck it in to the censors of Nintendo America.
Yeah.
And then they've got the final boss that's kind of very Sigma from Mega Man X.
Yeah, he's huge. It's this massive DK that comes up from the skyscraper, very much like the original King Kong. And the 2 fists come powering down on you.
I find it interesting that DK Jr. is cruising around a lot too.
Yeah, so he has a cameo mostly as this asshole. To be honest, there's a few stages where there's conveyor belts, and he works a switch to randomly change up the conveyor belts to mess with you. And this is one of the few levels where it's just RNG.
Or make bridges for you, it seems.
Yeah, anything
too.
with working with the switch. Because there are switches that Mario can use, but then the ones that DK operates, he just messes with you.
This is wildly interesting.
Yeah, I feel weird just because I feel bad that I never played this, and Jake was so excited to do this episode, thinking that a couple of us had played it, none of us have. But
Yeah.
looking at the game, it's got me intrigued to where I want to play it. I'm not a huge Donkey Kong fan in general, but this looks like a lot of fun.
I would take this over Donkey Kong Country any day, to be honest. It looks...
Oh, based on what I'm seeing, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I just the size of it, especially going from a regular Game Boy to the Super Game Boy, it really seems like they crammed a lot of stuff in here. Not only that, it sounds like the varying difficulties of the stages, and yeah, I'm like I said, I'm intrigued. I don't think I'm ready to jump in the boat with you guys and be like, oh, I'll take this over DK Country, but yeah, like I said, anytime there's a game like this that obviously is something I should have known about and didn't know about, yeah, it's an attention grabber.
So what you're saying is you're going to speedrun this game now.
No. 100 levels. I don't know if I have enough patience for anything with 100 levels. But, yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, I looked it up, actually. The speedrun for this game is around an hour, which...
Dang.
I mean, that's insane to me.
Yeah,
for a Game Boy game. It's normally, I think, the ones I saw, the average to beat is like 9 hours or something at most. Wow. But for a speedrun to beat it in an hour is crazy. I have no idea what glitches they may be using or just solid practice. Because the game itself is very well polished, there's not a bug or glitch I ever came across. Like, it was one of the most solid, polished games I've ever played on the Game Boy, or any Nintendo title for that matter.
There's probably the odd stage that you, given the new mechanics, you can probably work your way through in under 10 seconds. And then a good chunk of them that are under 20.
Well, if you can master like the backflip especially, you can clip a little bit over some stage areas. Like the first level with the girders, like I mentioned, you can backflip across those and just have a really smooth fly up the level.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see, as more and more people are being introduced to the podcast, I'll be interested to see what the dynamic is like with the conversations that are sparked from this. Because clearly there's going to be a very close following for this game. So the fact that 3 of the 4 of us here haven't played it, I'm really curious to see what everybody else has to say, because it's absurd to me that this exists, especially for kind of an earlier title for the Super Game Boy, right?
Yeah, well, the game is, 25 years old?
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of DK fans out there, and if somebody like, Jake has this in their top 10 of all time, this has got to be beloved by a lot of people. So, I'm kind of flummoxed. I have to say it that way. But I'm excited to see what kind of discourse or conversations it sparks up, because I'm sorry we just didn't know about it, but this is a new thing. I don't want to get excited about handhelds. Who has time? But now I'm excited about handhelds.
Yeah, it looks like this came out alongside the Super Game Boy.
Yeah.
Almost exactly, if not exactly.
Yeah, it was this and Super Metroid, I think. Not Super Metroid. Metroid 2, I believe, that also took advantage of the Super Game Boy, I think.
Oh. Okay.
I don't... maybe.
But I mean, when everybody talks about Donkey Kong, it's usually Donkey Kong Country, right?
Metroid 2 came out 3 years earlier.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what that was? That was... So they pre-programmed a couple titles in the Super Game Boy to have special palettes. I think Metroid 2 was one of them.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Yeah. But I always find it, like, everybody keeps ragging on me about hating Donkey Kong Country. And like, okay, I get it. Fine. You love the game. But this came out just 2 years before. And of all there's a lot of Donkey Kong games that have come out over the years. I don't understand why everybody clings to Donkey Kong Country when you have titles like this, which I think are fantastic. Like, is there any other Donkey Kong games you guys like?
Donkey Kong, the thing about Donkey Kong Country is it was flashy. And at the time, that's kind of what Nintendo needed from their platform, with all the Sega, coolness, Sega's where it's at, that sort of thing. And Nintendo was getting dominated. So it was the graphical aspect of Donkey Kong Country that I think got people on board to begin with. And it was a lot like a lot of generic platformers at the time, personally, in my opinion. But it wasn't a terrible game. I personally don't think it was a great game, but it wasn't terrible either. It was kind of average. It was really the graphics of Donkey Kong Country that pushed it over. And unfortunately, that's kind of been the case for ages, is people pick the looks first before the mechanics. And this game looks like if mechanics came first, this is a winner by far.
Like, to me, Donkey Kong Country, the controls and the moves they feel sloppy, a little bit loose, and not talking about handhelds. Hey-oh. Okay. Anyway, but like the controls in that I find are loose. Whereas this one, I find the controls very tight, as I said, very polished, and it just kills me. Like, even they went so far as like Donkey Kong Country and they ported it to the Game Boy. I mean, it makes it even worse of a game, in my opinion, especially when you look at this is already there and it's fantastic. I just don't get it.
It's the Bohemian Rhapsody rule with Donkey Kong Country. Like, people gravitate toward that and they're like, this is the epitome of a Donkey Kong game, but there are better DK games out there, and it's Bohemian Rhapsody. There are better Queen songs. But Rhapsody is just what everybody kind of seems to gravitate toward, I get you. Honestly, I've never been huge into Donkey Kong. He's always been a cool character to me, but I like him best when he shows up in other things. Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, stuff like that. So I've just, outside of DK Country, I've never really followed it too much. I've got, Donkey Kong Classics and stuff on the NES and stuff like that, but I've never really had that drive to try them out. And I will admit, if I were going to have to pick a Donkey Kong game to try out, this would be the one.
Yeah. See, my experience was Donkey Kong Jr. because I remember that was one of the first arcade games I ever played. And I'm talking one of those, what would you call them? Cocktail table ones where everything's flat and you're looking down at it.
Oh, yeah.
You're seated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, that's my biggest experience outside of the Donkey Kong Country games. So that's the one I'm most attached to. And I just like the going between vines, the whole left and right arm. It was satisfying to me.
The only thing I remember from that one, Donkey Kong Jr., and I did like it, but the threshold on a safe jump was so low.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like you trip up your toe, you're dead. It's the worst.
It was not very forgiving. But I think that's probably what I liked about it, because if you got past the first level, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm good at this. And then you never get past the second. So it's kind of like the original for me.
Yeah, for me, the original Donkey Kong, at first, I wasn't allowed to play it. My parents had the Coleco, actually. It was a Coleco, and I was not allowed to play it because it was a grown-up toy, apparently. So I watched my dad and my uncle play the original Donkey Kong. Oh, yeah. Well, even today with the Switch, right? The kids ask if they can pull the dock, and I'm like, oh, no. That's Daddy's toy. No, you're too young for that. It's like, I'll let them play it, but there's no way in hell I'm letting them hold it in their hands. Forget that. But yeah, I never got the chance to play on the Coleco. You just haven't
trained him well enough. My kid knows to wash his hands before he touches the Switch, and he's very careful with it.
I was trying to think of a dirty hands joke, but I came up blank.
Well, no, because he's 5. You know, they're always greasy hands or sticky or something.
Wait, you grow out of that? Crap.
Paul, wash your face, brush your teeth.
Thanks for the reminder, Mom.
And Paul,
do your hair.
You can play the Switch, but don't grab the handheld, okay?
Wait, I thought the Switch. I thought the handheld was the Switch. That shows how much I know about it.
And call me Daddy.
It is. You can call me Daddy.
GP stands for Great Papa.
Oh, was this game also referred to as Donkey Kong 94?
So it's Donkey Kong, but nowadays, because people get confused with, people can't tell the difference between 81 and 94, So they just refer to it as Donkey Kong 94. But it was really literally just Donkey Kong. And that's why when I bought it, I just thought I was buying a cheap port of the original game. I didn't realize there was so much behind the scenes.
Yeah, never mind. I didn't realize this was DK94. I beat the hell out of this game. It's hot garbage.
You steal my lines.
I want a catchphrase.
I just want to live vicariously through you.
I'm not coughing as much nowadays, so I can't fall back on that.
Yeah.
Got to reinvent GP.
But no, so I'm downloading this game as soon as this is over, and I'm gonna go through it. So if ever we can do an update or like a refresher on games that we like this, like for example, in listening to the Final Fantasy one, Paul and I both had never played Final Fantasy 3, and since then I've played both the NES and the DS remake of it. So maybe we should do that sometime. We'll try this. We'll come back and we'll be like, this is what I liked, this is what I loved, this is what I hated.
Yeah, because I was expecting at least one of you to have played this game.
So
I can't believe I'm the only one who played this game. It's driving me nuts right now.
This is why we don't do this mystery date thing.
Well, it's me for trying something different.
No, I appreciate that. I think the mystery date needs to be something we're absolutely certain somebody else is playing.
I think it worked out in your favor that you had to explain it to us. So, I mean, that...
Yeah. I mean, if GP's right, a ton of people are going to be like, oh, man, yeah, I love this game. And if he's wrong, then everybody's going to be super intrigued by this, just like we are.
And it still worked out better than any blind date I've been on.
Part of the problem, too, is it is a Game Boy title, and a lot of people don't necessarily play the Game Boy stuff. At least you don't see much about YouTube and Twitch. I mean, you'll see long plays and stuff. But...
Yeah, sometimes the color palette of 4 shades is a little hard to get people to stare at for extended periods, I think.
Yeah, and it's a shame because games like this there's a lot of classic games on the Game Boy. I mean, this is one of them for me, but there's tons. Even the original Super Mario Land and Tetris, of course, was a system seller for the system. So I love these games, and it's a shame they don't, I guess, get more exposure. Like, we're never going to see Game Boy Online on the Switch, for example, like they've done with Nintendo and SNES games.
Yeah.
That is a shame, you're right.
Which is a bummer, because some of those Game Boy games, multiplayer, were badass.
Yeah.
What, multiplayer? Oh, yeah, I guess because they had the multi-tap for the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Yeah.
Should we wrap this one up?
Yeah, I guess so. I thought it would have been longer.
Well, no, I mean, I felt like it was a pretty fast 40 minutes. if we're being honest. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, me too.
Informative. Like,
right.
there's informative ones, there's argumentative ones, there's different types of episodes. I think this is very informative, and I think everybody was very intrigued. I think you did a great job.
Well,
yeah,
I do like the sound of my own voice and hear myself
This is
talk.
almost like a beta of WTF is.
Yes, because I definitely, for future episodes, I do want to do, what the f*** is this? There's a few. Death Stranding is definitely coming soon. Because I love that game. Anyway, all right,
Me
to wrap
too.
it up, Pulse, where can people find you?
I'm in Canada.
There's a lot of land and not a lot of people up there. Good luck, folks.
You just gotta ask. Come on.
Like, you can just ask anybody, where's Paul? Should they be like, oh yeah, you're going to go 14 hours this way.
No, you can find me at twitch.tv/Palsh109, PALSH109. I've been known to stream from occasion and mostly from here, so you found me.
Where in the tundra? Pulse 109.
Copyright.
I appreciate the attempt.
I just quit. I give up. Wolf, where can people find you?
Most of the year, Washington, every once in a while, California. But Twitch and Twitter, and here, of course, Werewolf, WAREWULFF. I stream all over I play just about everything, so check me out.
And after GP picks up his phone, where can they find you?
Yeah. I stream under the Retro Therapy on Twitch, and you can also find the Retro Therapy on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and all those places. But otherwise, I'm right here on Press B to Cancel.
He's not on Tinder. I tried.
Great. Well, just not swipe left on him, I guess, then.
Yep.
And I'm SicJake. I'm on Twitch and Twitter, and I will be playing Donkey Kong at some point, when I stream once a year. And this has been Press B. Yeah. This has been Press B to Cancel. Thanks, everybody. Special thanks for music go to Arthur the Ancient, found on SoundCloud, or The Last Ancient on YouTube. For more episodes, please visit our website, pressbtocancel.com. As well, feel free to like or subscribe at Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else you like to listen to your favorite shows. As always, thank you. This has been
Press B to Cancel.
Press